Thanks for checking out the BoshNRoll channel. If you want to see me play your deck, hang out with me in the amazing BoshNRoll community in Discord, access to my lists and sideboard guides before tournaments, book an individual coaching session, or just generally want to support what's going on here, check out the Patreon and YouTube membership options. For the finest Magic the Gathering apparel on the market, use code BoshNRoll for 10% off your order at coalesceapparel.shop. Moxfield.com is the easiest way to build a Magic deck online. If you want to play what I'm playing, use my affiliate link to support the channel while you shop for cards at tcgplayer.com and play any deck anytime on Magic Online with a cardhoarder.com loan account. Thanks for being here. Let's go play some Magic. Hey, so I'm here with Alan from Mental Misplay. We're just hanging out, having a conversation today. We don't have a script. We don't really have a plan. The setup for this was this past weekend, I guess 2 weekends ago by the time you're seeing this, I went to SCGCon Columbus, and I was planning to play Modern for 3 days. It started on Friday, and it was like Modern 20K, Modern 20K, Modern 10K across the 3 days. And I had a rough, I had like a below average day one where I like died to a misplay in the final round for day two. And then day two, the second 20K, I was dead by round 4, just terrible showing. And I at that point, I didn't even want to play Modern on Sunday. And I was like, what can I do for a day and a half? Because my car mate Brady is busy winning the tournament. He literally won the Saturday Sunday tournament. And so couldn't leave until the end of the day Sunday. And I was like, what do I do? But I was rooming with Mikey, a CDH player, and it just like floated into that community. And it's like, let me get the commander experience. And I was sort of like tweeting my thoughts. And Alan responded to some of it where it was the first time I've experienced that full casual experience of I'm here to hang out and play Magic, and that's it. There is no chance at a trophy. There's no chance at a check. I have paid my money upfront for entry, hotel, travel, and I know that money is gone. And the freedom that comes with that versus like, I'm here for like a fun adjacent work weekend, which is how I've been approaching Magic Travel since 2008. So it's been a long time. So, and then Alan was in my DMs like, I'm coming from the other direction. So what's on your mind? Like,
well, first of all, if 2008 is like more than 10 years ago, if this is your first experience doing that, like going out and playing to win and being like, oh, well, I got a day to kill out of like all of the tournaments I'm sure you've played in, like, hey, it's going to be nice to take a break, right? It's going to be like, that's a good problem to have in a stellar track record. So first of all, like,
yeah, absolutely.
Good on you. Like, that's hard as fuck to be able to say that, like, for the first time ever, I'm not like totally crushing face. It's awesome.
Well, I haven't been winning since 2008, but like I have been showing up with the intention of doing my best to win. And if I don't make day 2, I'm going to be in the Sunday tournament, whatever that is. Like we used to like hum like Hello Darkness, My Old Friend, like that song when we would have to queue up for the third tournament in the weekend. And back in the day where you had to handwrite each deck list, when you're handwriting the same deck list for the third time in a weekend, and you're just like, I hate my life, but there's a PTQ qualification on the line here. I can't not, like, what am I just going to do for a Sunday? Just sit here? Like, it's a totally different mindset.
And now it's not even a PTQ qualification on the line, right? Now it's just like you go to win for that weekend, right? Is that correct?
So with the reintroduction of like these regional pro tour qualifiers in DreamHack, those like events that happen 3 or 4 times a year, we haven't had the first one yet. So we're still determining how that works, but DreamHack Atlanta is coming up, and basically every tournament of any reasonable size is also a qualifier. So there's like the local level that queues you for the regional level, that then if you do well enough, you go to the Pro Tour. So these are... so
they do count for some, like more than just that weekend. It becomes parts of a whole, basically.
Right. Like there's no SCG tour right now. Like you don't get like 2 points for signing up, and 35 points queues you for the Envy at the end of the the session, that's not there, but there are, if you care about getting to this DreamHack Regional Pro Tour qualifier, then top 4 of the 20Ks this past weekend did get invites to that.
Okay. It's a like you can tell by my kind of like approach to it and like response that like this is a world that I'm not familiar with, you know, like
Right.
it's very wild to me. But you said like, yeah, you had like this whole day to kill and you played 12 games of Commander or whatever it was. Like you showed up when the hall opened and you just you were like, let me just go sit in the command zone and just jam games for the literal whole day. And you were grappling with like the switch that happens, and I've been on kind of like the opposite end of that recently. I've been finding myself going to these events, and I started to tell you earlier, but like, yeah, I would go in like 2018 and stuff to like the Grand Prix, and then they became the Magic Fests, and I would just jam Commander games, and they would give you like I would buy the package where you get a bunch of like the tear off like vouchers for Commander games, and they would be like pickup games, and the ticket structure was all wonky, and I'd be like, okay, I have 3 days to play 18 Commander games, which is like or like 22 Commander games or something, like absurd number that's just like, and I would do it. I would crush through all of them, and then have like enough tickets to get like a third, like 2/3 of a box of something, right?
Right.
Like, because the payout's all crappy. So like, and there weren't like competitive, like now they've at least got like 3 rounds CEDH stuff that you can go do, and if you sweep one of those you get like a bunch of tickets. I know, like I went to Richmond with Rebel and she crushed one of them. I think it was at Richmond, and she had enough to like get one of the big planeswalkers or whatever.
Oh,
I was
nice.
like,
Yeah.
that went fucking nowhere. Like, it was crazy. So, and that was just from like crushing a little 3 round thing. So, but like, I've recently been on the opposite end of that, whereas like I used to show up at these things like it's a lot of fun. It's a weekend of jamming games and being goofy and just trying to get as many as possible. And I remember going out one year and like the whole ramp gang was there, and I played with them twice a week, and I was like, I'm not trying to play with a single one of you this whole day.
Amen to
I'm just
that.
gonna
Yeah.
get. I was like, I'm gonna get games with everyone else here. And I did. I played games with like, and a couple of them I would have like one of them sit in. I would get a game with one of them versus 2 strangers and stuff. And those games were awesome. But now I'm on this end where I'm showing up at these things to do work. I'm showing up to do the live coverage, or to record, or to be in panels, or to do like either the TO or Moxfield, or somebody's like making sure I'm there to do stuff, to do, and to make the event visible, or to record a vlog, or to do whatever. And so and even before that, I started to slip into this mindset of like, okay, this like go live floor coverage is wild, but I'm not able to sit down and jam 10 games in a row anymore.
Right.
I sit down and I'll play one game. Like, I have people coming up to me all weekend, and I feel like such a doofus because I'm like, yeah, I hope we can get a game in this weekend. And then like I'm standing up and running around for 45 minutes, half an hour doing the live coverage on the floor. And then I sit down and jam a game, and then go grab lunch, and I come back and do it again. So the day is all split up differently. So I saw you talking about like trying to go from a the grind set of like you're there to win, and you're there to play your one deck and play that format over and over again, to like, oh, there's like, we're just here to socialize and have fun. And I'm starting to go into it where I'm trying to like change how I'm thinking about spending my time there, and that like I need to make content. I have like an itinerary while I'm there. I have
Mm-hmm.
specific things I need to show up and do. And whether that might end up being like covering games, sitting in the booth and doing live coverage, or like going and talking to players who are in one of the tournaments or something. So like, I'm battling with this opposite end of it, like trying to change where my head is at, approaching them in a work on a work axis, I guess.
Right. I had this divergent experience actually where, on the one hand, when I was in those modern 20K events, I had to get out of content brain, and like, because on YouTube, I play a video a day, and it's just like, I'm usually playing some deck. Like 99% of my decks I play are sent by a Patreon subscriber. That's just my model. That's where they come from.
Yep.
And even the decks that I want to play, it's either blind luck that they suggested it, or a generous patron gives me a dealer's choice to do what I want for the day.
Nice.
And like, I have not been like, this is my deck I'm working on. Nobody sponsored this video in 2 years. So like, I'm frequently learning the deck as we go. It's like, oh, I didn't realize what that card did. My bad. All right, next game. Like, now I know. Learning is fun. And I do believe all those things, but you can't be in a modern 20K where you're playing for money. You spent money to enter this thing. There's real money on the line, and figuring out your sideboard plan in the first 3 rounds. Like, you need to know that before you sit down. And I am not in that brain space. Like, over COVID, like there were no events. I played basically exclusively on content. Like, if I wasn't recording, then I was on like your stream. I'm with Modanon. I'm with Rebel. Like, we're hanging out. They have played very few non-content Magic games in the last 3 years.
Yep.
And like, local events started to open up. We've gotten the regional events the last few months, at least in America. And I've been starting to step back out. But like, I used to be like full psychopath where like you miss your, you'd like Mishra's Bobble me, and I'm like, draw step, and you're like, okay, and I draw my card, and then you're like, oh wait, I missed my draw. Like 3 years ago, it would have been like, sucks to suck, play my land, let's go. Like, I mean, not like, I wouldn't have like said it like that, but in my head,
but like, yeah, you're like, yes.
right. And like,
point for me.
Right. Like, I'm not going to point out like a miss trigger these days, but I am much more like, okay, like my hand, the cards only like just hit my hand. Like, it's fine. It's close enough. Yeah, go ahead. Or like this past weekend, somebody went to like Otawara a treasure token that I had, because like I was representing a counter spell, and he wanted to mess with my mana in my end step. And like, my treasure token had a 2 on it, like a die 2 representing 2 treasures. And he was like, end step, bounce your treasure token. And I was like, okay, you want to bounce one of these treasure tokens? And he was like, oh, you have 2? And I just let him take back the Otawara completely, when like everything that happened was legal. It was represented clearly on the board. No judge would have said, no, this is unclear. Like, I could have just been like, okay, I'm down to 1 treasure, go. Yeah. But like, I let him have his Otawara, and that's in like the brain of someone who has like a public platform now, has a public persona. Like, each opponent is a prospective viewer of my channel. And while I do believe in playing by the rules, there's also like some human element to it where, frankly, if I want, and I'm not talking about like creating opportunities to rules lawyer or angle shooting, but like playing a super tight, clean game, holding your opponent to the plays they make at competitive REL. I am much softer on that than I was 3 years ago. And it's all of this other context. So there's that angle. And then the other angle was hanging out with the CDH crowd. I was just like, I don't have to do any of this. Like, these people are chilling.
Yeah, it's just jam games to jam. It's literally just play spicy spells to play spicy spells. Like, there's no one's out there like, oh, you won, I'm mad at you because of this. Like, it's just like, okay, good, like, on to the next game, whatever, you know. And things might get heated when it comes down to like assessment and like, you know, multiple people having like some sort of weird locked board state or removing a stack. Like, there's always going to be heated discussions, but that's because it's part of the game itself. And like, there's definitely a very specific player base who enjoys that aspect of it. I'm like, but like, but so I got caught on the opposite. Again, we're coming at this from 2 amazingly different angles. I got caught on the opposite end of that at tier 1. I was playing Dalsum, and Dalsum says it untaps when it attacks if it has reach. And I attacked, and we declared blockers, and I was like, okay, and it untaps, and they're like, no, that's a trigger, that's an attack trigger. And I was like, oh no, he stays tapped. Like, for the first time ever, he's gonna stay, because every other time I'm like, okay, we'll go through blocks. I'm like, oh yeah, he untaps too, like, because it does that, no one cares, you know. But these guys were like, no, he stays tapped, like, you missed that trigger. And I was just like, oh shit, like, yeah, that's a trigger that happens at a very specific time.
Yes.
And so I was like, really, yeah, I had exactly the opposite of getting like stuck on this. And there's another person to talk about with that sort of thing who has amazing ability at it. Is the name's on everybody's lips right now, but Charles, I'm on a white guy.
Mm-hmm.
He plays in a comp REL setting, he plays ruthlessly, and he's playing all these rule of law effects and stuff. And if you try to drop a second, I learned this from him. If you try to drop that second spell, he'll just straight up just hand goes up.
Yep.
There's no there's no nothing about it. It's just hand goes up. And I talked with people about it, and they were like, that's kind of filthy to like play on people's like it, like making mistakes like that. And it's like, well, yes, but he's not just playing by the rules of what the cards say. He's playing by the rules of what the game says and what the tournament says. So you have to know all the rules when you're playing. You can't
Right.
just know the rules of the cards and stuff.
Yeah,
You have to know the Big Ten picture.
Right. And that's really important. Like, we're talking about like accumulated games rule violations for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, where if you break the rules of Magic, but you're not cheating, you've committed a game rule violation. If you do it on purpose, it's cheating and you're disqualified. If you do it by accident, which happens pretty regularly, the judge will come over, fix it as best they can, and give you a warning for a game rule violation. If you get 3 of these in the same tournament, they start upgrading to game losses. And like, that's what we're talking about, where with Charles raising his hand to call for a judge versus just saying, hey, you can't play that second spell. Like, one of these is tracked and affects your tournament path, and one of them is just players keeping the game clean. But like, ultimately, the player who cast the second spell violated the rules of the game.
Yep.
You can see that rule of law. It's not a secret. You chose to cast a second spell. Like, tighten up. And like, what if you are cheating? What if it's just like, all right, we got the vibe flowing here, like
fucking ignore it.
Yeah, like what if it's like Ethersworn Canonist, or like a Deafening Silence, like something with a conditional rule of law effect, where it's like, all right, I'll play this creature, this artifact, this spell, this creature, this other artifact, and then this other spell. Like, we're just, I'm in the flow, see if I can sneak one through you. And like, what if that was not an accident? You got to get a judge involved. Like, it's your like responsibility to the tournament. And I was a judge for 14 years. I just decertified this past year. Like like the way that the judge universe changed, it's just finally time for me to stop. But I was certified for level 2 in 2009, and I decertified in 2022. So I come from obviously a tradition of like, call a judge if there's a problem. Yeah. And it's really important for the EDH players who are stepping into tournament space, and like the arena generation and like the COVID generation and all these people who have never played paper Magic with a judge before. Judges are there to keep the game honest. And if you have a problem with a judge, then some rule has been broken. It's like, I mean, I hate making that argument because that's what people say about like police brutality, but like, it's actually true in this case, where if the game state was violated, somebody did that, and we need to clean it up somehow. And calling a judge does not make someone a jerk. It does not make them an angle shooter. It doesn't make them anything other than somebody trying to play a clean game, which is essential. Like, if I have like a guiding star, if I have like a religious document to point to, it would be like the infraction procedure guide and Magic tournament rules for me. like that is the closest thing to a Bible I have in my life, where it's like, I believe like vehemently, passionately, zealously in a clean tournament experience. And more than like great prizes or cool personalities being there, like, I expect the rules to be implemented in the way that the book says they should be when I agreed to sign up for the event. And someone calling a judge is just making sure that happens.
I had another experience with at tier 1 as well, where like there was I don't remember what the policy exactly was, but they have like a policy about king making and spite plays and stuff like that, which is like wild
Mhm.
and new territory as well in
Yeah,
tournaments.
tough to enforce. Good luck.
And so there was a heated moment in a game I was in where somebody was like trying to make a deal and was like, if you don't do this, then I'm going to blow up your thing and not this other thing. And I was like, this other thing is posed to win the game. Like if you don't take care of that because of something somebody else did, then that's a spite play and you're king making. Those are both of the things that we're supposed to not be doing right now. And I said this not knowing that he had like backup shit in his hand and he was being adamant about it and not being like, he didn't say, I have another way to deal with it, So I was going with not misinformation, but not all the information. But that's part of playing the game, right? So I was like, okay, if you're going to go down this path, I'm going to call the judge,
Yeah.
because this is something we're supposed to do about this. And I called the judge, and the judge was amazing. He came over, he listened to each of us explain what was going on, and then he said, it was because things were so heated, there were missed parts. The judge was like, this was Libby, the head judge, was like, this is a clear miscommunication. And he basically said, you guys are idiots. Keep playing this game.
Right.
Like,
Right.
and I was so blown away by this, like, this conflict resolution of like I'm not gonna give somebody a game loss or a DQ because you guys are idiots. Like
Right. Yeah.
this is
Judges are trained to first de-escalate the situation, and that like it could be like, I want to talk to each of you away from the table separately if it's too hot to do it in front of them, or just like okay, like approach the table like, all right, folks, one at a time. Alan, what's your take on this situation? And then like if someone's like, no, that's a stop, you'll get a turn.
That's exactly
Alan,
yes, what he did.
Yes. Judges are trained to do that, and once everybody gets a clear story, if there is any confusion to the judge, they will then maybe pull people aside or like whatever, and at the end they'll just be like, okay, there was a miscommunication here, this is what's going on, there is not actually a problem here, let's just take a deep breath and keep playing the game, thank you for calling. Like that's and sometimes it's just that, like a judge approaching the table does not mean a penalty is going to be given. Policy in general is really, it's the friendliest it's ever been. There was a lot of stuff when I started playing that was just like, I miss the everything's a DQ era where it's like deck reg error, disqualification. Like that was like the draconian 90s. Like I wasn't playing tournaments then, but for a long time it was like, you drew an extra card, we can't fix this game state, game loss. But now it's like your opponent gets to look at your hand and take a card out of it. Like they get to Thoughtseize you, which like, I mean, it's rough, but like
that sucks.
Yeah, but like you messed up. You drew the extra card, and this used to be a game loss. So accept your Thoughtseize. Like
and it's better than a game loss, for sure.
There's a lot of stuff that lets the game keep playing that used to end the game in policy at the policy level, and judges are trained and built, and policy is written to fix the game state as best we can. Nobody's getting kicked out of this game unless you cheated or the game is completely irreparable. And a lot of the time, and sometimes depending on what the level of damage to the game state is, it's just like, you all missed it, we can't back it up, keep playing as is. Like, and that just happens a lot too. So I mean, judges are good, actually.
We do that with the live games, and I tell that's part of my like CEDH Rule 0 statement is like, if there's a game error, we're just going to do our best to like fix it, and if it's irreparable, we're just going to have to forge ahead, and there's been, I think the one time it was like really irreparable and we just had to push past it was somebody resolved an Allurin and the game just turned into garbage.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
the stack just went it was terrible.
Yeah, once like there's a pretty common sense threshold where it's like, if I like, cast Wrath of God but I don't have double white and pass the turn, we can back up, like, okay, put this card you just drew back on top of your deck, we put all the creatures back in, Wrath of God's back in your hand, play from here. But if it's like, I Wrath of God, you go, you have a turn, you cast Concentrate, you draw 3 cards, you Wasteland me, you pass the turn, and then it's like, oh wait, I couldn't Wrath 2 turns ago. nah,
Yep.
we can't fix that. So
Judges
it's
can
just
be
like,
"You're dummies."
yeah, you both missed it. Everyone's getting warnings for the game rule violation and the failure to maintain game state, and then we move on. But yeah, so I want to like swerve a little back to this like casual versus competitive mentality out of the judge zone for a second. Like the first time I was ever on your stream, I Gataxian probed you, and this. So
this is like one of my fucking. I tell this story
I
all
know,
the time,
and I tell the story
fucking
about the
time.
fact that you tell the story because so like for the new people, here's what happened. I Gataxian probed Alan. He revealed his hand. I said okay, and I drew a card. And he was like, "That's it? You're not going to say anything? You're not going to like he was expecting like a, oh, that's good, or like, oh, table, we gotta watch out for this, or like he was expecting something." And I just hit him with the professional deadpan of like, "Okay, I know what your hand is now. I'll draw my card and continue playing." And the fact that that was weird to him is like was weird to me. Like it was like meta circle weird, where it's like, what am I supposed to do? Like, you want to have a conversation about the cards in your hand? I thought we're playing the game. And like, why would I say anything that might give information about like, why would I tell you that I care about this thing in your hand that might affect the way you play your hand? And like, it was just the fact that you thought that was weird. I thought it was weird. And that's like one of my seminal experiences in like the CEDH space of like, we're playing like to win, but it's also so casual.
Good. Yeah. And so like another part of it is also like that also transfers to the 4-player pod as well. You know, like you having no reaction can hurt you in a 4-player pod, because then the two people who you might be relying on to help you deal with whatever I have in my hand are unarmed now. They don't know what's going on either. And to have them know what's going on can also hurt you, but more often than not, like you want to rely on those two other players to deal. Like it's always going to be a 3v1. It's always a 3v1 until it's not, you know, and it's literally the 3v1 just pivots every turn. It's just whoever's doing the worst stuff is the person who everybody's trying to deal with at the time. But yeah, you just, and so like I'm used to doing this live. Like I've been playing live games for 2-3 years now, whatever the hell it is. So I'm used to people resolving this Git probe and being like, okay, oh, that's a spicy one, and then okay, and like half of it is to like inform the table, and half of it is to like react along with the audience and give the stream something to react to, and half of it is just to like be on, you know, to be like being entertaining, you know. So when you did none of those things, I was like, oh, this is I'm sitting across from a monster. Like this is a monster man, like sitting across. Like I'm just absolutely mortified, because you just like so clinical, you know. And like when like I play with. And that comes back to, again, like people's play styles, right? So like in live games, I've played with so many different people, and some people will ham it up the whole time, but do it for purely for entertainment. Some people will ham it up the whole time and do it as a mix of entertainment and to kind of like manipulate the table a little bit and kind of control how people are reacting to them and to their game state. Somebody who's really good at that is Sinestra. Sinestra is one of the head mods on the CEDH database, and he plays like a lunatic. He plays one of the most careful games I've ever seen, as far as like sandbagging spells, always making sure there's backup, always knowing what's going on the board state, but reacts to everything that happens like bombastically, like super. Like if you mess up any of his stuff, if you target any, he's like, what are you doing? Why would you target my stuff? Obviously this is the problem. And it's like, it's obvious, it's very, very hammed up, but it does change the way you think about the plays you make and the way you're going to play the game. And it's not like bullying. He's got the perfect way of doing it that's not bullying. It's not like, you never feel like he's like actually judging you because of it, or being like, you know, actually thinks there's something wrong with you. But it does it changes the flow of the game in a really interesting way, and I've seen it over and over again. So like, yeah, to have you just react totally silently to that was just so Martian to me, because it was like it was crazy.
And adding to that now, like this probably like that game was probably close to a year ago at this point, and that was maybe the third time I had played CEDH in a pod, sub 10 games lifetime, and this past weekend I Gitaxian probed someone, and there was more of a conversation. Like we were playing in paper, thanks, so much better than Spell Table, but he handed me his hand, and I was like, I guess, you know, community, what's the etiquette here? Can I just slap this thing face up? And they were like, no, but you can tell us whatever you want about it. And I was like, okay, there's some fast mana and an entomb. And I handed his hand back, and I was trying to let the table know what we need to plan for without totally blowing up this guy's spot. But then the guy was like, fast mana? I don't know if you could really call this fast mana. I was like, fine. He's got Llanowar Elves, Finhorn Elves, Mox Diamond, and Entomb. There's your whole hand. You happy? Like, I was trying to, you know, thread the needle, and I was like, fine, your hand's face up now. Thanks for complaining. Like, and the social dynamic does matter a lot. And if I recall correctly, that game I Gitaxian probed you and said nothing, you won the next turn. Because I was just like, you know, yeah, like you just popped off, and I did not give the table the opportunity to react to that. So there was like part of the, you know, not accounting for the two other players at the table, and part of the, this is how I've resolved Gitaxian probe every time in my life. And like, because coming from the competitive, like not even just competitive, but like tournament mindset, anything you say or do, any face you make conveys something. And I'm not usually like a Hollywood kind of player. Like I have some tricks, like I will, like against the Storm deck, just like throw my hand face down and like look miserable, like if I have the Force of Will. But like I know that they could play around Force of Will if they think I have it, but there's a line that's cleaner if they just like think I have nothing. So I'll try to soft sell that I don't have it. There was a game at SCG Philly that was on Sky Warfield stream. They were streaming live, like over my shoulder, and my opponent, I had Veil of Summer in my hand against Storm, and my opponent had Empty the Warrens he could get, which I was never beating, or could try to keep going with Grape Shot and get up to 20, or just get the Tendrils now to my 1 green mana. And Storm was 8, and Tendrils, so Tendrils needs 10 to kill him. And I saw him like reach for his sideboard off Burning Wish, and then like pause to think, and I was just like, I'm at 18. I fetched and I forced. And he was like, oh, okay, Tendrils you. And like there was just like that like little soft sell of like reminding him like the Tendrils is lethal. Like just, you don't need 10 Storm. We're at 9. I'm at 18. Like, and he would have got empty if I said nothing. So like there is like a little soft sell in competitive play. But compared to what you need to do at an EDH table with 4 players, I got the pleasure of playing a few games with Mike Sad Robot over the weekend, who just won Punt City, and I could see how he won a tournament. There was a lot of like stuff he was doing. He was playing so much more than the cards at all times. Like when a well-meaning spectator would like float by, like a friend of the group, and be like, "Oh, there's this in play," Mike would be like, Like to me, I'm like, oh, we're just playing in the hotel lobby. Who cares? But he's like, you know, like every little thing's part of my game right now. And there was a line where a Storm player end stepped a dress down so they could untap with all the Hate Bear shut off. And then they started like doing some stuff, and like really they were in the tank of their hand. And Mike was like, oh, Dockside Extortionist is so big right now. It's like looking miserable, but the dress down was still in play. Yeah. And like he knew that. He was trying to like get this person to commit their dockside into their own dress down. And like these like little cells that I was like, all right. I respect this. I see how tournaments are won around these parts. And I also saw the flip side where Mike in a pod with me and Mikey, or neither of us were buying his shit, where like he's on Winota. I played 3 games with him, and in 2 of the 3 games, I gambled for Swords to Plowshares in one of them to kill the Winota immediately. And then I mystical tutored for Swords to Plowshares in the 3rd one to just let him know that Winota's going to die immediately. And he did not win those 2 games because the table did not fall for his BS. So like there is like some cool, there's a lot of play there that I did not consider with that first Gitaxian probe. Like there's the professional mindset of like, wait, why didn't he say anything? And then like it's also just strategically wrong to not say anything in some amount of the time.
Yeah. So it's a different game with 4 people for sure. Like you have to be relying on other people to do stuff. And because I'm playing a lot of like wonky mid-range stuff that maybe doesn't have an answer for every single thing, and also like that's part of CEDH is you're never going to have the answer for every single thing. Like
Right.
that's why when somebody's like, of course he always, I never didn't have it. Like it's kind of like a half sarcastic thing. It's like said with a surprise, because if somebody has the answer every time in a CEDH game, it's the exception.
I mean, heuristic study was probably involved. Like
exactly.
when somebody on taps with like 23 cards in hand, they might actually have the answer for everything.
Yeah.
Plus they're drawing cards off each counterplay from their heuristic. Like that sort of game can spiral. But I've gotten quite an education. I've been practicing. Oktoberfest is going to be my first CEDH tournament that I'm attending later this year in November, and I've been doing the work to like really dig in. I'm in some Discords. I've been trying to find games off Twitter and stuff, and there was like that feeling of, oh, the table's got this is really different. I was in a game where I had something like Esper Sentinel and Mystic Remora, and one of the other players had Rhystic Study, so we were both just like gassed up. And then the other 2 players that were Alex McKinley and Bryant Cook, who are both world-class Storm players, and they were not drawing extra cards every turn. And at some point, I like put Underworld, or I was first position. The other person with the Rhystic was second position. They were third and fourth. The person in second position put like Underworld Breach or some like unbeatable spell on the stack. And Alex in fourth position was like, I don't know if I should answer this. And Bryant in third position was like, this is their problem. They both have 20 cards in hand. Let them fight it out. And They were just like, okay. And like they could have answered the breach, but they made me do it. And by the end of that stack, our 20 card hands were down to like 5. And then I think Alex won the game in fourth position, like that turn cycle. So like just those dynamics are really cool that don't exist in competitive play or 1v1, 1v1.
Yeah. And I saw recently like people like laughing about CEDH being a multiplayer format and being like, oh, this is like, it's like a joke because of that. And it's like, well,
it's just different.
It's different. And it adds a layer of politicking. And I'm not trying to be like snooty about it, but it adds an absurd level of complexity to the game. Like it makes everything way crazier because like you have to defend it, especially in a tournament setting. You have to defend every single thing you do to 3 different people. You have to be like, no, this is a value survival of the fittest. Like
right. And like these like little like non-game action things where like I was playing a game where one of my opponents was like I had Tymna in play and another opponent also had Tymna in play, and a third opponent was like, all right, I got Deadly Rollick. I'm pointing this at a Tymna, and I was like, I'll show you my hand right now if it doesn't come at mine. Like, free Gitaxian Probe, put it on the stack, like, take a peek. And And she was like, if I take this deal, will I regret it? I was like, I don't think so. And I showed her my hand, which was just like a bunch of mana sources. And she's like, you're right, I don't regret that. Kill the other Tymna. And like, that's the sort of thing that, you don't get in tournament 1v1 Magic. But I told the Gitaxian Probe story to dovetail into a story from this weekend, which was my first like really crystallizing moment that these people are here for a different thing than I am. Where it was Friday night and I had just lost my day 2 winning in. We got dinner, went to a hotel. None of us were even staying at the hotel. It was just near the venue. We all walked in, pulled some tables together, and hung out for the next several hours. But I had a 20K to play in the morning, and around 11 o'clock, everyone was, chilling. They're in games, like, they're buying drinks from the hotel bar, like everyone's lounging. And I was like, I should probably get back to the Airbnb and go to bed. And my table had an audible reaction of like, oh, like it did not occur to them that there's any reason to be up in the morning, because when your plan in the morning is to just meander into the command zone when you wake up, you don't have to be anywhere. You don't have to be rested. You don't have to be sharp and a good breakfast eaten and all that stuff by 10 a.m. the way I needed to be. Yep. Which like was my first really like crystal moment of they are here for something different than I am in like a pretty palpable way. And other things that came up, long lunch breaks. Like I ran into Cal from Playing with Power, and we were having a conversation, and I was like, oh, I'd love to jump into a game. He's like, oh, I'm about to head out to lunch. I'll be back in like an hour or two. Where you just like go sit down for like a nice lunch with a large group. In tournament play, like you're like, hey, what's your record? Oh, I'm dead. Oh, thank God. Can you run across the street and get me a sub or something? Because like I got no time today. And like if you die first, you group text the friends, like, anyone need anything? I'm making a food run. And everyone's like, yes, please. This. And like you take care of each other because you got 50 minutes. Unless you're playing a fast deck, you're going to use 30, 40 or more of them every round. And suddenly it's 5 p.m. and you ate breakfast at 7:30 before the tournament and you haven't eaten today. Like, it's just a very different
also
thing.
Makes you a bad player. It makes you terrible at Magic if you don't eat food.
Yes, I have had some horrendous end of day punts in my career based on that. Like that mistakes I would not make at 10 a.m. I make at 5 p.m. And you forget to eat or you don't take care of yourself. You're not hydrated, all those things. And you can just like drive across town to some like cool pizza place you heard about and like sit down and have a conversation with 10 of your friends in the middle of the day, which is not a thing that happens. And then the big one on Sunday, it was somebody's birthday party. So they decided to just have a barbecue at their Airbnb. The whole like Playing with Power crew, the whole like CEDH squad didn't even show up. I got like one game in Sunday morning with Cal and Drake. And then they were just sort of like, all right, I'm going to head to that birthday party, or I'm going to drive home. I'm going to get out of here. And then I sort of like, Cal posted a picture of like 12 people in the command zone on Sunday, and I was one of them. I got a few games in with some other people, but the group of 20, 30 that I had been chilling with the last day and a half just didn't even show up. It's just like, I've gotten enough for my $85 command zone badge. I don't need to be on site today, which is not something that I would do as a tournament grinder. I like it. There's a Sunday 10K to play. I got to recoup this weekend. And it's like, no, I'm going to sleep in and go to this birthday party. It's
so and
totally
I've been having the opposite experience, right? Of like, I've got so many hours in the day and people want to play games with me. And I also have to go live during the day to get these interviews, to get this content, to do all that. And then party at night also. Like then I'm also expected to be like, cause I'm, like I have a persona like, oh, fucking, let's have a good time, And so like people are all like, I also want to do that. I want to go party and play the cube or pick up games like in the hotel lobby, all that stuff. But like I did that Friday night when we went to Richmond, and then, Lua and a bunch of other people are like, we're going out, we're going to party. And I went out with them and we partied till like 2 a.m. or some nonsense. And I came out on Saturday and I got out on the floor and I busted out the microphone and the selfie stick and all that. And I was trying to interview people and I was like, how are we doing today? Like I threw up these just air balls for interviews. And like I feel like I went up to Shivam and I talked with him with the mic and the camera live for a minute or two, and I had a splitting headache and I could barely put words together, and I feel like I just punted the interview with somebody who literally does that shit every week and is a master at it, right? Of like creating good conversation and creating intelligent dialogue and stuff. And I was like, how's the weekend going? You feeling good? You play Baldur's Gate? Cool, man. Like, just had like, and it was like I could barely put 2 words together, So it's like I'm starting to get that, but and it's weird because it's like kind of in a social setting, but like if a tournament organizer is fronting my ticket, the bare minimum is like, hey, you're getting in for free. I'm going to be like, okay, well then where do you need me? What time and what, like, I'm going to be there when the hall opens, and I'm going to be, trying to raise a ruckus all day and be like, and make their event more than it already is, create more than the sum of its parts by just being there and being a presence. So like but to me, the real tough part now is that time balance, right? It's like, I do want to play a game. You came up to me, you're wearing a Mental Misplay shirt. Like, okay, I got to stop what I'm doing and sit down and play games with you because you support the movement. You're here and you recognize me and you know what the vibe is. Like, yes. And then, you know, after that game, I got to go right back up to stand up and get the camera out again, you know, and it fills the day up and it means I'm pulled in 6 different directions at all times. I don't, and so like when 8 people are like, we're gonna go get lunch right now, I'm gonna be like, enjoy lunch because I ain't got 2 hours right now.
Yep.
Like that's a game and a live segment for me. You know,
Absolutely.
that's content and my personal time that I don't have to spend right
yeah,
now. So
at SCG Philly, I think that was the first big regional event once the COVID stuff started to roll back a little. And I had been playing CDH for the better part of a year. I was in touch with like the Twitter group. I'd been on streams. Like I knew a bunch of the people. Zach Allen was in a similar place, coming from the grinder mindset to trying CDH, and Rebel was in the building. We spent the entire weekend, like 2.5 days, trying to get a game with Rebel, and it never came close to happening because we have a tournament to play. We're there for a thing, and we, at no point, even if our round finishes quickly, at no point will we be able to have like a bogged down like 35-40 minute CDH game. Heaven forbid we get into like the real dregs and it takes an hour or more, which can happen. And or like if like 2 of us are in the like let's bang this game out mindset, and 2 of us are in like the let's hang out with our friends mindset, where it's like you draw for turn and it's like, oh yeah, that's a good one. Then look over your shoulder. Oh, hey, are you going to the thing later? Like, and then someone at the table is like, play the cards, please, which then undercuts like the casual experience. So like, that's like another part of it too. Like, at no point were we able to hang out with Rebel. Like late Sunday afternoon, we settled for a selfie. Like that's that was our hangout with Rebel that we were trying to set up for like 2 weeks, and it didn't work out. And I felt the same kind of pull this weekend in a lot of my games where it's like, yeah, it's after midnight in a hotel lobby, but also like I sat down for a Magic game, not for a conversation. Like, I mean, if we can chat about life and, you know, whatever, and like, you know, oh, what do you do for a living? Like while you're making your land drop, while you're cracking your fetch land, searching your deck, that's fine. But like going into the tank, or like we're waiting for you to pass priority and you're in another conversation over there with person number 6 who's not even in the game, like I feel annoyance by that. And I don't know if that's like my expectation that Magic should be played cleanly, or if it's actually like rude to be off doing something else when you're sitting down for a game, or like that's like something I got to figure out too if I'm going to be in these like late night hangouts.
The late night games, you just gotta, it's just like you just gotta embrace that it's gonna, like those games, they're probably not even gonna finish. Like you're not you're gonna you're just like, though that's the time and the place to get games, but it's not about the game. It's about chilling with your buddies and acting like a lunatic. And like if you are like all zeroed in on the game, it's gonna be sloppy. Like you just have to be ready to be just like, I play this spell, and everybody, oh, it's chromatic ori, you know, whatever it is. Like that's
Right.
the that's where your head's at, you know, like, and on the floor is even worse. If you're on the floor trying to get one of those games in at the con itself, like forget it, because every 2 seconds somebody's walking up being like, oh, you're playing with this person, how's the game going, what are you doing later, you want to go for lunch? Like that game is also going to take an hour and a half, even if it's the most cut and dry game in the world, because you're literally in the middle of a fucking tornado, you know?
Right. Yeah. And like that shit bugs me, and I'm willing to be self-reflective that I need to like take context into account. Like I'm not like mad at anyone. At no point in this past weekend was I like, fuck that guy in particular for how long he took with it. Like, you know, like it's not that. It's just like there's a breach on the stack. Are you passing priority? Like this is an important moment in the game. Please look, or like get on Twitter for a second. Like at least pass priority so we can move on it. Like, come on. Like I definitely have that sort of we got 50 minutes here, let's get it done kind of mentality. And I'm also like extra sensitive to it because I tend to play control decks that I have taken a lot of draws in my career because my opponents were playing slow. And I play decks that might take a while to win, or at least like actually win. Like I will effectively win the game on like turn 9, but I can't present lethal until turn 17 or whatever, where it's like activate Castle Ardenvale 6 times, 1 turn at a time, put a 1/1 into play, and eventually you'll die from 20 to these 1/1s once the board's completely stable. Like that's a game plan that, you know, if you're like playing show and tell and you're doing the casual thing where it's like, oh, you had the Force of Will for my show and tell. Okay, this is going to take me a little while to rebuild from, I guess. And like, it's like, does my Force resolve? Can we go to my turn, please? The clock is running. Like, I can like feel the draw approaching in a game that I can't lose, but I might not be able to win it because my opponent is not respecting the clock that we share. And like, that is heavily ingrained in like, I have like polite ways to ask people to play faster. I have impolite ways to ask people to play faster. And then there's calling a judge to monitor the pace of play. Like all of those are tools in the pocket of a tournament player, which, you know, in the hotel lobby at 11:30 at night are not tools in the pocket of anyone. And they don't need to be. It's just like a difference of expectation that's on me to get used to. But
I mean, and you can sharpen those tools for that scenario as well. You know, you can have a different tool. It's like, oh, come on, like just ham it up or do whatever. Do something that feels like in the moment. You know, like is like fucking tighten up, guys.
Yeah, there was one moment, and sorry to the person who, good chance they're watching this video, but there was like a 3 or 4 minute tank of just like a player staring at his hand for like. It was literally 3 or 4 minutes. You could have run a clock. Like I could have made popcorn, and we thought he was like planning out a big combo turn, and then and like at the end of like this enormous amount of time, he was like, "Okay, I'll pay for Rhystic Remora," and then drew a card, and the whole table was like, "That was about the Rhystic." Like we thought, it was literally just like. Okay, I'll tap Llanowar Elves to pay for Rhystic Study or for Mystic Remora, and then drew for turn, and then started thinking about what he's going to do on the turn. And the whole table was like kind of
everybody lost there. Like, everybody was like, "What are we fucking
doing?" Yeah. I think that game did devolve into a moment of a player saying like, "This is bad. I'm just done doing this," and made like a play that yeeted the game to like a different player, and it's just like, so. Clearly, like there is a line where even at casual levels, it's like you got to play the game. We're here to play a game. If you want to have a conversation over drinks, like let's put the cards away and like go sit at a different table. We can do that too. But like navigating those waters is something that I don't normally have to do.
I find myself in those sort of positions in guesting on people's streams. Because, you know, like I'm used to hosting and controlling the pace of the game and saying, okay, it's your turn now, or like, what, okay, do you pass? Or like when I'm hosting, I can do that. I have that grace of being able to kind of move the game along, and I'm all like, and so things do move along, you know, and like I'll sit in the tank. One of my dudes who edited one of my videos recently was ripping on me because he's like, every single time you draw a card, you sit there for fucking a minute and a half. But then like I guest on a lot of streams, you know, I play with a lot of different people, and it is, every stream is different. The flow, the pace, the conversation, everything that happens is different. And I have to always be adjusting what my mindset is. Like if I'm on a charity stream, like realizing that I can't be playing like a fucking Spike. Like I'm not there to play. Like I can't be like tight that I'm not winning or whatever, you know. But if I'm on a casual stream, like super duper, like it's, and a big part of that also is having a reputation of coming from CEDH. So it's like I double have to be wary of like kind of what I'm
you're
doing.
Bringing the whole community with you, and if you're kind of a dick, then the CEDH community is kind of a dick. Like you are like the crown is heavy, where like I've I've like tweeted some stuff in the last 2 years where I'm like, oops, I have 21,000 subscribers. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Like it's something that I would say among my friends. And I don't mean like, you know, like I'm obviously not cool with like racist jokes. That's not what I'm talking about. But like certain like things that I would say or like jokes I would make among like my circle of friends who like understand what I do for a living and like the context of like, you know, this or that I might say and as a person versus like the 21,000 people who subscribe to me plus whoever the algorithm puts that in front of, and then I'm suddenly like, you know, on the verge of being canceled. Like I'm like, wait, what happened? Like there's some shit that you got to think about when you're a public face that you don't have to think about when you don't. And being nice on streams, even if like the paint is peeling on the walls and you're like, you got your knuckles dug into your leg under the table. It's like, can we move this shit forward? Like you just got to smile and crack jokes.
Yep. A lot of the times you just gotta like be ready to like either be like really like in it with everybody else, or know that you're maybe not going to be in it with everybody else, and that there's going to be like something going on. So it's like there's a lot of heavy lies the crown is a really interesting way of putting it too, because like there is a lot of weight to actions, right? Like, and that's something I'm learning as well. Like I have a small platform compared to so many, but like I, you know, try not to be negative, try not to be like, you know, talk shit, you know, because people pick up on that negative shit. People pick up on that for sure. And it's and we'll run with that faster than when you're like, this person's awesome, you know, like people will always, and that's something we're seeing like even right now, like people are focusing on the negative really strongly, and it's something that I try to be really conscious of. But as far as like guesting on people's streams and shit, like it's been a big lesson for me to just kind of like I'm here for the ride. Like that's really what I'm here for. And it's also tough because like if you're the fourth wheel and you're not tight with like everybody else, like trying to throw those jokes in is also tough, you know, trying to be like, I'm going to just hang with the bunch of you and be cutting it up when you like don't quite, you're not, you know, on all the jokes, or you're not there with the vibe or whatever. But yeah, the balance of like, also like my, you know, number levels are bad or whatever, but like my 8 is not going to be everybody else's 8 as far as a deck power level, right? So when I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's not that great, and the deck like busts out the commander on turn 2 and then has like 10 cards in hand, and everybody's like, what's wrong with you? You're like, oh, this guy, the CEDH guy again, like coming here playing precons, and he's got a, you know, a whatever Jewel Lotus on the table, you know, and it's like, so that's also like a huge balance, you know. That's like a like something that's just like always got to be mindful of. And it, I think, relates back to the original point of like switching between this like spiky mindset of like I'm trying to eyeball plays and all that sort of stuff, or I'm trying to just like play spells. A perfect example was I played with Modanon and a couple other people on a super casual game, and I was trying to like really observe timing restrictions and layering. And Dan was like, it doesn't fucking matter what order it resolves in, like it. And I was like, sorry, I'm just like in this mindset of like trying to like really observe like the correct way to play this spell. And he's like, it doesn't, right, this has no bearing on the game right now.
yeah like there's some stuff in CEDH where like Archivist of Ogma triggers off searches, but you don't actually draw your card until the search is done. Like that's like funny, like kind of a weird thing. And if multiple players have, when a spell is cast, triggers, the abilities go on the stack in active player, non-active player order. But because there's more than 2 players, the least active player, whoever's farthest from the active player, resolves their thing first. Like you cast your second spell, like I got a Rhystic Study, the person in 3rd position has a Ledger Shredder, like I draw for Rhystic before they connive for a Ledger Shredder, and like that might matter in those like mega tight situations.
Yeah.
Where at the casual table, it's just like, oh yeah, this, we're throwing cards around, and no one's gonna like flusterstorm in between like my draw and your connive. Like that's just not, it's not happening. So
Yep.
yeah, and I do like playing like that when I'm at just the LGS on Wednesday Night Commander or whatever with my decks and 3 people. I don't know. I'm definitely just chilling. I'm not expecting anything. It's like the gap between EDH and CEDH and then CEDH and tournament play is like they're 3 different levels. And like if something is advertised as competitive to me and I sit down and it's still casual, there's just like some psychic friction that I have to work through of like, competitive means we're playing to win and we're playing good cards. It doesn't mean we are adhering to the infraction procedure guide and Magic tournament rules in the hotel lobby at midnight. Like that's that's something for me to figure out. And figuring out that CEDH is still a very casual format was something I crashed into early on. And I've been in conversations with both Monarch and Eminence, the 2 premier CEDH tournament organizers. Each of them have had me on a call talking about like, how do we run this thing as a tournament? Like what does a tournament player need from a CEDH tournament that makes it a tournament experience and not a CEDH casual experience that's organized? And those were really productive conversations. And I think I blew their minds a couple times with like things that I just take as gospel. And they were like, but what if this? And I'm just like, how are you going to enforce it? If you can't, don't. Like, you're just making people upset. And for a thing you can't do, if something's ever going to be implemented with like any amount of gray, it should probably just not be implemented. Like, players need to know, like, I don't care how you feel about it. Does your document say it's illegal or not? Like, that's sort of like that. You talked earlier in the conversation about like king making and spite plays. It's like, define that objectively. Like, give me an operational definition of spite play, give me an operational definition of king making, and I will read it and I will follow it if it's in your document. If you have this like nebulous idea of king making floating around, I promise if any tournament players watched the whole way through this, so this part of the conversation, they've never heard of king making. They don't know what that is. I didn't. In an early game that I played, I was playing with Pleasant Kenobi and some other people, and PK slapped in a Craterhoof Behemoth out of some like the green white Selvala is what he was playing, and slapped in a Craterhoof Behemoth, put exactly lethal on me, exactly lethal on someone else, and I was like, I'll float a green with Forbidden Orchard, give him a blocker, and then that player won because he was at 1 instead of 0. And PK was like, I thought we don't king make in CEDH, and I was like, what's king making? I just thought that was fun. Like, you killed me, so I came at you in the way that I could, which is like literally a spite play in king making, now that I understand these terms. But like, those are not terms that people coming from 1v1 understand, because there's only one player. Of course I want to beat them. Of course I want to spite them. I will. If I can fuck with them in some way, I'm going to, because it's only the 2 of us. And like, fucking with them is why I'm sitting down here.
That's been Rebels, one of Rebels, like it's not quite an idiom, but how do you explain to the tournament grinder like not to cast the pact when you don't have the mana to pay for it to stop the other person from winning? You know, like how, like,
right. And then how do you explain to the casual that I'm not going to reveal my hand that may or may not contain Dark Ritual to pay for the pact that you can't see right now, but I have a plan? Like, no, I'm not going to reveal my hand to you to justify the spell I just cast. Like, maybe something just happened. Maybe something different's going to happen. Like, maybe I don't have the Dark Ritual now, but I have Rhystic Study and I'll find it by my turn. Like, I'm playing in my outs. Like, how do you explain that to a casual player who's mad that you're pacting with only 3 mana in play? Like, there's a lot of gray area there, that coming from the, I will play to any thin out. Like, if your breach resolving will win the game now, and I have Rhystic Study, I'm 2 players around in the turn order, and I can Pactum Negation and Dark Rituals in my deck somewhere, I'm taking the play. Like, it's 100% dead versus 99.9% dead. Like, I'm taking the play. Tell me I can't. Like, I'm coming.
I had that exact experience at Marquesa. I had somebody was playing Winota, and Winota got killed the first time around, and the second time around it got cast, and it was Spleenface was it was like me, the Winota player, then Spleenface on I don't even remember, but we know Spleenface has a demonic consultation in hand, and Winota resolves a second time, and I know that the guy next to Spleenface has um a mental miscast, so a mental misstep, excuse me, and so I'm like, okay, well, good, he's got the answer, but it's still like, all right, so Spleen casts a lab man. And I was like, nope, and I fucking withering boned it. And he's like, why the fuck didn't you do that to Winota? And I was like, well, because it's the difference of like getting to play for another turn or two and getting beaten to death by Winota versus getting beaten to death right now by you winning. And he was like,
Right.
well, the guy next to me's got the misstep in hand. And
Yeah,
I was
but
like,
you knew
oh,
that too, Spleen.
and I was like, yeah, that's gonna fucking stop you, right? And he was like, fine.
Yeah, yeah.
And we lost the Winota player anyway. Like, of course we did, but it was like I got 2 extra turns of playing rather than like probably dying right there.
Yeah, like Winota could whiff or like not find the specific payoff it's looking for, or life totals might be high enough that like maybe you have Cyclonic Rift somewhere in your deck that you can draw to versus like, dying to Laboratory Maniac right now.
Right now.
Like it is that like I can understand like the gamesmanship argument of like, oh, we got to answer this Winota when you're rolled up on your win like 2 turns from now. But like once it's like come and gone and you're like, why would you do this? But like you got to understand like playing to those thin outs when it might feel bad for you is whatever. I had a game this past weekend where again Winota was involved in first position. Winota had like Winota was like stacked up, and then there was a player at 5 life with some Tymna Thrasios ad nauseum deck, and then a player had been eliminated, then me. I had the last, and the win was in my hand if I could get through these stacks pieces. And the second position player did an end of turn March of Swirling Miss, exiled all the stacks pieces, untapped, and I was like, oh, you're just going to win instead. But at least Winota didn't. And they played Dark Ritual ad nauseum from 5 life. And the Winota player was like, what the hell? You're just giving Brian the win. And he was like, no, there's like Mox Opal, Lotus Petal, whatever in my deck. I could run something together here, and this is my out. And he died to his ad nauseum. And then I won the game easily on my turn with all the stacks pieces phased out. But like, the player with ad nauseum in 5 life doesn't owe Winota anything. It's like, this is my out. Like,
yeah.
It's not king making for me to take my low percentage swing and die on the out. Like pacting the spell when you don't have the mana to pay for it, but you might someday. Like that.
Yep.
It's the same kind of thing. And those mentalities, like coming from tournament play, like I don't owe you anything. You are my opponent. I am here to win. If I make a play, if it doesn't make sense to you, fuck you. Like, frankly, in the most sporting way possible. I'm not like Michael Jordan, who makes all of my opponents my enemies and it is personal. Like, it's not like that, but like, why would you counter that? I don't know. Let's keep playing the game. Like, I don't owe you anything. And coming from the casual table where it's like, we're just trying to have a good game. Why would you mess it up like that? It's like, because I'm a jerk. Like, that's a different thing.
Yep. And it's different, and so like, and it's, I keep coming back to it, but then like, yeah, the difference between doing that live as well is like, okay, like we could, like there's nothing on the line, like there's nothing on the line, and we're trying to optimize for entertainment and not for like hosing somebody. So like early on, I would have people on and just do everything in my power to stop them from winning, just do everything I could to just hose them, and realize that like I'm asking for 3 hours of this person's time to invite them out and just have a bad fucking time by me just like spamming fucking opposition agent on them or whatever, is like that they're not going to want to come back. They had a bad time. They had 3 hours of not playing spells, like that's a bad look on me, even if I'm winning. You know, it's like it's a super bad look on me as a host and kind of as like a personality or a person, you know, is like you don't you want people, you know, like the phrase that's been floating around is like you play like you want to be invited back, you know, but you also play like on the opposite side, you play like your guests want to come back.
Right.
Also, like that's really important. So like that's why I always like tell people like we're optimized for entertainment when we're playing
Right.
live. We're here
And
to we're here to draw that extra card when you're at 2 life on Nas to see what happens,
right.
you know.
And like what are we playing for is the last like bullet point in my limited notes that I had here of things I wanted to talk about, because I think this is really important too. Because like if I am playing Is It Murktide Mirrors in the hotel lobby at 11, it's because I'm testing for the tournament tomorrow morning. If we're playing CEDH in the hotel lobby at 11 at night, what are we actually doing? Because to me, like, I want to play the best games possible to practice for future tournaments. Like, I want a lot of high quality games with this deck that I think is good, and I want to know if it's good. I want to play the best players making the best plays, and like, I don't want bad data going into my tournament, whenever that is. Like, I have the one coming up in November. I don't know when my next one is after that, but like literally someday, if it's 2 years from now, I want every game to sort of feel like tournament prep. But in the testing area, like competitive testing, if my opponent has Chalice of the Void in play, I'm just not going to cast a 1-drop. I'm going to assume they play well. I want to know what happens when my opponents play well. It's not useful to me to test against a tired friend who misses a Chalice trigger.
Yeah.
I might, you know, play that out in the tournament once we're there, but like I'm just not going to cast a 1-drop. But or like the missed triggers, like when I'm playing CEDH in the hotel lobby, I'm like, I'll cast my spell. I'm not paying for these 2 Ristics. I'll just say it. I'm not going to wait for them to be like, would you like to pay the 1? Like I'll just throw it out there, because I will assume that my opponents are making the best decisions with their best intentions and remembering all their triggers, because I'm preparing for a tournament.
Yeah.
Whereas some folks at the table, depending on what their end game is, like, have they been playing on Discord with their friends to really stunt their stuff and win games in the hotel lobby at SCG Con? Like, is this their show? Because this is practice for my show, which is a tournament but like, I can see how, like, if somebody is like, I've left the LGS, I've traveled to Columbus, Ohio, I am here to play CEDH against the greater community at this high level, is me being at the table, like reminding people of their triggers, undermining their experience. Like, what is the show? What is the payoff at the end of the road is like a really interesting thing from someone who wants to prepare for tournaments versus someone who wants to go to SCG Con to play CEDH.
So we used to do that when the Ramp Gang. We used to do that when we would go to Magic Fest. We would go, and because we were all playing for the tickets or whatever the fuck it was, we would go, and like even they would do like the 2-round whatever where it's like and you know there's no like one big winner, but like you could win both rounds if you want. And so we would do prep for that, and we call it the gravity chamber, and we would all stick each other on the rules, and we would all like hold each other to like all the triggers and everything like that, and we'd be like, no mistakes right now. And we would spend like a week like jamming, like 2 weeks jamming games like 3 times a week, all in one big room, like playing. And we were like, all right, time to go in the gravity chamber, you know, as like the dumb like Dragon Ball reference or whatever, and we would just jam out these games over and over and over again into all each other's decks over and over and over. And then like, you know, we'd show up at Grand Prix and be like bloodthirsty, you know, and be like, all right, we're gonna crush her. And it's like the pods in those were like gobbledygook, you know, it was just not like, you never know what you're gonna run into in those sort of pods. Whereas like, and we'd just be ready to eat everybody alive, right? And be all like wound up over threat assessment and all that sort of shit. And like now at least there's like a clear delineation, you know, like even at Bellevue, there were like you could hand in your tickets and you could play like super casual or mid casual or CEDH pods. And now they have like the 3-round CEDH things at these bigger events, or specifically like the Marquesa tournaments, which are like, or the Eminence tournaments, which are like, those are like a big comp tournament. So like you know that you're walking into like a meta of fairly established shit. Whereas these Grand Prix games would just be like all over the map. They were so fun, but like we would like vastly over prepare, like just jamming, like exactly like you said, like preparing for the show, and that was the show. But the show was like ended up being like like
The show
nothing
was
we were
Rugrats.
the show, not even like, I'm not gonna like talk, I'm not gonna shamble it or anything like that, but yeah, the show was not everybody running like tier 0. The show was just like everybody showing up, you
Right.
know. But I like the idea of like, yeah, for some people, yes, the show is pulling up at the lobby afterwards at 1 a.m. and playing games where everybody's just wiling out and screaming at each other, and not like the gameplay isn't the focus. The focus is the gathering. And
Right.
that's where I've found that the best experience is over and over and over again. Like that's, and like everybody was like really, you know, towing that line in Bellevue. It was like, it's about the gathering. It's about the gathering. And it's like, yeah, it's about, for me, it is that. It is the social thing. But yeah, back to circle all the way back to the beginning, the social thing has intersected for me with work, and grinding it's not grinding games work. It's like grinding content. It's just
Mm-hmm.
being, and like also getting games in with people and doing that because I like it. So like I want to take some like enjoyment out of it, but I do like running around like a lunatic and talking to everybody. Like that's me in my element for sure. Like I'm so ready to be in that space. But I think what I really have to do is start coordinating with tournament organizers and being like, hey, uh, I'm going to be here. I'll have the camera up. I'll be live in these time segments, and then also like making that known. So like if you want to get games in with me, you can get games in with me in these time segments as well. And so like Pastimes did do that. They were like, okay, you're going to be sitting down at the table from 3 to 8 or whatever it is, or 3 to 6. So like I've got 3 hours to jam games right now, and then I run around and do the videos for the rest of the time, you know. So it's, for me, that's where my struggle has come in, and that's why I resonated so strongly with the statement that you made about like trying to go from having this itinerary and this clear idea of what you were doing to I'm just going to sit here and jam games for 8 hours, and I'm coming from exactly the opposite. So it was really cool to find that path, and I'm still just like you. I'm still balancing it. I'm still trying
Yeah.
to figure out what the best way to do it is.
And as an adult, like I've been, like I said, my first Grand Prix was 2008. I think I played a few PTQs even before then. Like I've been on the road for Magic events 20, 30 times a year since 2008. And I was in college, like I was in high school even for a couple of these trips. Like I didn't have money. I didn't have a job. I wasn't a grown up. Like we had 5 people in the car, like snuggling up, you know, 5 big Magic players, filling up the whole car. We show up in like Hartford, Connecticut or whatever, and we meet up with another car of 5 who we're splitting a hotel room with. We got 10 dudes in there, sleeping 3 to a bed, people on the floor, someone sleeping in the bathtub, and like that's how we made it work. Like this is like, we are eliminating overhead to maximize expected value on the weekend, and like all of that. Like, and as an adult, like with a job now, I'm in my mid 30s now. Like I have been several years down the path of, I'm going to treat this like a mini vacation with a chance to get paid, rather
Yeah.
than like I'm going to min max everything.
Yeah.
But even like just hanging out with this crew, I realized that I'm not even close to vacation mode. I'm just sleeping more comfortably, but I'm still there at work. And
Yep.
you know, like I posted a tweet earlier this year when the Command Fest were announced, and I was like, is there like a modern main event or something? Like why would I come in here? And everyone was like, no, what do you mean? I was like, why would I drive to Richmond, Virginia to play Commander, to pay for the option to play Commander? I can do that for free here with people I know in like a pod I trust, and like we don't have to have the power level debate. Like why the hell would I spend hundreds or $1,000 or whatever on this vacation? And the answer is because it's a vacation. It's just like the mindset of a Magic player, especially Magic players who win once in a while, is like different than someone who goes to Gen Con and Origins and Dragon Con and like hits the con circuit every year, because they're going to spend money. I'm going to win money. And most hobbies don't pay you for playing them. And it's just, that's been something I've been wrapping my head around for the last year or so, when like the rollback of Pro Magic and like the failed MPL experiment and like Command Fest replacing Grand Prix, and who knows what's going on with the Pro Circuit. And like, obviously I am in the wedge that's like, there's nothing more prestigious or important than winning a Pro Tour. And that's never been a smaller motivation for Wizards of the Coast or the Magic player base than it is now. And like, I understand that. It's just finding my spot in this of, am I going to show up to these modern 20Ks and be a psychopath? Or am I going to show up to these modern 20Ks as a content creator and have some friendly games, maybe budget a day for EDH and like just hang out, hand out like promo tokens and stuff, and like, you know, press the flesh, as they say, kiss some babies. Like, is that what I'm doing at these things? Or am I there to win? And can I do both? Or do I want to do both? It's just like this big identity cluster right now that I'm trying to wiggle my way through.
I'm in the same boat for sure. Is like, am I there to yuck it up, or am I there to like report on the event? Am I there to grind games? Like, I very much understand that kind of like learning to fit into a space correctly, you know, and the transition from like Pro Tour grinder to like event circuit, I don't know, attendee is real weird. Like, I can't imagine the like, because there's like, all of a sudden it's not about going out and making it lucrative of ending up in the black, right? It's about like, you know, I'm gonna end up in the red, but I'm gaining experiences, or whatever you want to call it, you know. And that's like, if you can take that and turn it into content after somehow, that's great. But that's also not easy to do. That's something that is like, it's tough, you know, and it's why I've really latched on to the live, going live and like being guy on the ground live, is because like there's, that space is wide right now, and people want to see what's happening at these events, and the tournament organizers don't have coverage. You know, these events don't have coverage. There's nobody, like, the only way you're seeing what's happening at Command Fest, you know, Mordor or whatever, is by the attendees posting their selfies there, you know? So it's like, so I felt like, oh, like once I did it one time, I was like, this is the spot. This is the hot spot right now, is what I found.
Yeah, so I was sitting with Honorog Das on ZD MTG, who does the event coverage these days. He's doing it himself. He's paying for that expensive Wi-Fi. He's bringing his cameras. He's traveling the country. Star City like gives him permission to be there, but he's not subsidized in any way. If, by the way, viewer, listener, whoever you are, if you're not subbed to OnZD MTG's Patreon and you give a shit about event coverage, please go do that. That's like the most important $5 you can spend right now, I think, in like the Magic space. But like, I was sitting with him because my car mate was busy winning the tournament and I had nowhere else to be. And like, in a downtime, he was like, would you ever want to do coverage on this? And my knee jerk was, no, then I can't win the tournament. But then like, I thought about it for like 5 minutes and I was like, what am I talking about? I can stay home. I can be piped in. I can be part of the tournament, and I can like get paid for my time. And like, that's probably great for my coverage exposure. And like, you know what? Yes. Reach out to me when you need a coverage commentary. Cause like, yeah, bro, I do want to do this 100%. So just finding my lane in the space I find myself as a mid-30s person in like the post-pandemic society and all of the things that the downswing of pro Magic, like all of those factors, definitely finding my way here.
So yeah, like I'm going to Magic 30, and I wasn't able to get a pass for the command zone. So I was like, fuck, what am I gonna do? Like, so like I'm trying to wrap my head around like going and like and covering it's like it's a modern main event, right? Like that's what it is.
The event that has the most like prize equity is a series of modern qualifiers that culminate in a beta booster draft. Yeah. But those seem to be like 3 events in the 3-day festival, just scattered around everything else that's going on. Like, I have no idea how this thing's going to be structured, but yes, the like main event, like if Luis Scott Vargas is in the room, he's going to be playing modern, like in that way to answer the question.
So like that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around is like, okay, am I going to have to like now familiarize myself with who's going to be playing this main event and like run up to them and talk to them or like know the standings and all this shit to like if I'm covering Magic 30, like people are going to want to know who's in the beta draft, right?
Yes.
People are going to want to know that, you know, and like, so like, okay, how do I make myself a fly on the wall in that room? How do I talk to people who are competing for that? Am I going to have to familiarize myself with the modern metagame? Am I going to have to familiarize? Because I couldn't name 5 modern players if you fucking put a gun to my head, right? So like I'm going to have to like learn that, you know, which is like kind of wild to me, but also at the same time it's like I'm kind of pumped about like having to go like going there and like actually having like an idea of like what I want to cover, what I want to talk about, what I want to do, you know?
Yeah, and so, those events are going to be strange because they were very small, they capped very quickly, they're at this gigantic international Magic festival. It's not like the Magic Pro League got first dibs at entering this thing, or is like some Asian MPL pro gonna fly from Japan to Vegas to try to draft beta. Like I've been working with Matt Sperling because he and I are both in these tournaments and like we want to take them seriously. So Sperling and I have been talking back and forth about modern and like what we expect the metagame to be. And who the hell knows? Like, I mean, honestly, like I know that Luis Scott Vargas and Martin Yuza both qualified for the last beta draft at the last one of these. They were in the grinders and they got there. Ben Stark as well. Like there are some, you know, Hall of Fame people who are interested in this sort of thing, but also were they in the queue at 10 a.m. on August 18th or whatever to get in before they sold out in 6 hours? Who knows? Like, is this a Grand Prix side event or is this a Pro Tour? Like, what metagame do we need to solve? And it's a really interesting puzzle to crack. And good luck, because I imagine most of the entrants in this thing are going to be people you've never heard of, but there will also be Hall of Famers kicking around, no doubt about it.
I'll become. So you're playing in it as well. You're.
Yes, I am registered for the two modern qualifiers. I will be at Magic 30. You know, at least one person you can talk to.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll have somebody I'm rooting for sure. That's gonna be really, really good. I'm gonna be. You'll see me running around with the bright shirt and the microphone, and I'm gonna be like, "Oh, Brian, how's the standings, Brian? We're rooting for you at home." And the chat's going, I love that shit.
Yes,
but yeah, I'll be I'll definitely hit you up and be like, so who else is playing? Who do I like? Or even just like, what names do I need to look out for?
Right. I mean, I have been reading InQuest magazine since I was 10 years old and Scry magazine and following Magic coverage, deeply invested. If I'm not a personal friend who can just point your selfie stick in the direction of someone, I can tell you who they are at least and who you need to know. I can be that resource for you. So we're like right at 90 minutes here. This thing Beautiful. Ran. And do you have anything else you want to talk about? We didn't really have an agenda here. It was just like a conversation, and we both make content. So obviously we're going to record it. We can't just talk for free. What do you think this is?
No, I'm psyched to have had this conversation and really pumped to have somebody on a parallel track, even if we're going,
we'll meet in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, even if we're going in different directions, like I love it, and I'm super pumped. So thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and thank you for being a good buddy as far as bouncing stuff off and having a good experience and being open to playing games and all that shit. Like, just thank you, truly. I really. And also a fellow ska enjoyer as well. Very important.
Yeah, ska music. I was actually at Pittsburgh Ska Fest last month, and somebody's wearing a shirt that said the only respectable art forms are ska and wrestling. And I hear that loud and clear. But yeah, everybody make sure to check out Alan, Mental Misplay, and if you watch me for legacy stuff, EDH is actually pretty dope. Don't worry about the discourse. Like that Cardboard Crack comic where the cure for Magic discourse is playing Magic. I believe that in my soul. Magic fucking rules. Just go play Magic with people and get off Twitter, and you'll realize that there's a lot of great ways to play it. And if you're here for EDH, proxy up some legacy decks. Let's go. Or maybe you want dual lands anyway. Like we're out here, and the communities are pretty friendly to people who want to join them. So, Alan, thanks for chatting.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Adios, everybody.